But eventually, we know that these merchants, with their trade routes, laid the basis for factory owners and industry. And we started to see the beginning of the second period of capitalism, the period of industrialization. Right? We saw the factory system coming into being. And that was the second period of capitalism. We saw the beginning of industrialization. So we have a factory owner. Maybe it's a loom, maybe it's a textile mill, maybe it's a steel mill. And these workers are working to produce products. And we have the factory owner, the capitalist, who hires the workers to work in his factory, pays them a wage, takes the product that's produced, and sells it to make a profit. And his income comes through owning. Whereas the factory worker sells their labor, and their income comes through working and renting themselves out to a boss. Right? This is the two classes, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, coming into existence. And the factory owner has a contrary interest with the factory worker. Right? The factory owner wants to pay the worker as little as possible. The worker wants to get paid as much as possible. They have a contradiction of interests. And then that leads to a problem. A problem in the way factory production is carried out. So, let's say that you're producing a product, right? Let's say that the product you're making is this pen, right? So in order to have this pen, first you have to hire workers to assemble it. So that's your labor costs, A. And then you're going to need the materials to make the pen, B, right? And then on top of that, you're going to need to ship the pens to where they're being sold, so that's C, right? And the total cost of the pen is D. But here's the problem, right? The labor costs can never be equal to the total cost of the pen, right? Or else you wouldn't be able to pay for everything else, or else the capitalists wouldn't be able to make any profits. So A cannot equal D. And the problem is, those labor costs, those workers are also consumers. And the worker can never buy back the product he produces. And this is the basis of the boom-bust cycle, where you have pretty soon the market being glutted with products that can't be sold. And this is what makes capitalism a naturally unstable system, is that the worker can never buy back the product he produces. And on top of that, the capitalist is constantly trying to advance technology to make production as efficient as possible. But at the same time, the worker can't buy back the product. So the capitalist is driving to fill the market with as many products as possible, but pay the worker as little as possible in order to buy the products, and it leads to that boom-bust cycle. And we talk about the Federal Reserve System. We talk about all kinds of mechanisms that have been invented by governments, you know, the invention of the corporation and stock ownership. All kinds of things have been done to try and resolve this basic contradiction. But as long as you have capitalist production, you're still going to have this problem, right? And during the period of industrialization, we saw huge achievements taking place, right? We saw, you know, all kinds of inventions invented for the purpose of making production more efficient. Electric lights, radios, all kinds of inventions and achievements taking place, but we saw frequent panics and collapses, and it was very, very unstable, right? You talk about the sweatshops that existed. They talk about, you know, the textile mills and people suffering. This was all happening in Europe.